And Moshe said, Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way, when you lie down and when you rise up. And shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to everyone worshiping with us at home. You can probably tell that the background's a little different, and that's because we are having our Sabbath services. Tomorrow is the first day of Hag Sukkot, and so we are getting ready to start that. And so the name of the message today is "Make It Hard for the Devil." Make it hard for the devil. One of the things, going for walks is one of my favorite ways to spend a long time with Yahweh. It just really is. Do you spend a long time with Yahweh? I'm not asking, do you feel that it's your duty to show up on Sabbath services? I'm wondering if you spend time just you and Him. I hope you do. I've heard people say before that Yahweh never speaks to me like so-and-so and like He does them, and that they never hear His voice like this other person does over there. And I can't be for sure, but it just might be that this is a result of being too busy and not taking time to seek Him. You can do that, You can get too busy and not take time to seek Him. If you are so busy that you're not spending time with Yahweh, I can just about assure you that you're cheating yourself out of some real blessings. And are most likely missing out on some real revelation and joy in your life. Amen. All right. Now, that's not what this message is about. I want to share with you a couple of things that Yahweh shared with me, but I felt impressed to bring it to your attention that Yahweh has time for you and He's waiting for you. That is, if you'll only make it a habit to spend quality time with Him. Okay? Just you and Yahweh time. But on to the subject. Today I would like to talk about, among other things, is making the devil work for it. Not making it easy for the devil. All right? You see, Satan has been trying to ruin the lives of we who were created in the image of Elohim right from the beginning. Agree with that? Yes, sir. But see, all too often, we make it too easy for Him. Sad to say. Turn with me to 1 Peter chapter 5. First Peter chapter 5, the first verse we're going to read is verse 8. First Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Be sober, watch, because your adversary the devil walks about like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. So lie down and give it up, because he needs to eat too. Is that what yours says? No. Mine doesn't either. Verse 9, resist him. That's very different than what I said. All right? Resist him, firm in the belief, knowing that the same hardships are experienced by your brotherhood in the world. All right? Sometimes it seems that we want to blame Satan for the trouble when we didn't do a whole lot of resisting. It's not like he doesn't have a part in it, but, it's kind of like I put that gold in the fire and this calf just came out. Are there any of you here who have suffered trials in your lives? Now, me too. Me too. Sometimes it's some really crummy stuff. It is. And though this is not always the case, if we will honestly and carefully examine the trials, the hardships, and the calamity that we experience in our life, we'll usually find that there's a common denominator. Does anybody here know what that common denominator is? That's right. We, individually, are the common denominator in our own trials, but beyond that, the common denominator is our own participation in the very construction of what resulted in the trials, the hardships, and the calamities. There are exceptions to this, of course, but they are the exceptions rather than the rule. I find that in most cases, when I'm in the middle of a mess, I have participated to some level with the creation, and I've made it easy on guess who? On Hasatan, that's right. I'll just bet if you think about it long enough that you'll come to a similar conclusion about your own messes. And do you know what? If you or I had only taken the opportunity, as we've learned about how to change our past, there's some of you here that don't know how to change your past. That was another message that I gave once upon a time, and maybe I'll give it again so that you can change your past. That's a cool thing. But if we'd taken the time to reflect and ask ourselves, do I really want this in my past? If we had resisted the devil, made him work for it rather than just giving in, we would very likely have taken measure to avoid doing some of the things that we have done. Amen? All right? Things which either contributed to or created those trials, hardships, and calamities. All right? Now that's a reasonable statement, isn't it? You said amen? If I had known what I was doing, the thing that I was doing was going to make such a mess of things, I would likely have done things differently. All right? You know what they say, hindsight's 20/20, right? Well, actually it's not. We'd like to think it is, but it's not. Though it does supply us with a lot of information that we did not have beforehand, too often our hindsight comes with attitudes like, if only so-and-so hadn't done thus and such. And such things would have turned out differently than they did. Or if the devil hadn't, been involved in it. And without spending an awful lot of time looking at our own part in the problem, we don't have a clear picture. So here's the question: how can hindsight be 20/20 if we have blinders on? Does everybody know what blinders are? You? Blinders are those things that you see them put on the side of horses' heads, so they can only see what's right in front of them. Kind of gives them a myopic field of view. They can't see what's going on all around them. All right? How can hindsight be 20/20 if we're wearing blinders? It likely can't. All right? Especially if the blinders keep me from seeing my part in the problem. All right? The answer is that it can't be 20/20 if you or I am not willing to look at our own part, can it? Nope. All right? See, I have a sister that says hindsight's 50/50. And she says that because it sounds funny to her, but the more I think about it, the more accurate it becomes. There's 50% of the problem that I caused, and then there's 50% of the problem that you can spread around to the whole rest of the world. If we'd straighten up our own stuff, then we would be at least having half of the problem solved. Isn't that right? That's right. Maybe more. Sometimes we can be more than half the problem. Sometimes when spending time with Yahweh, He gives me a whole new appreciation for many of the trials that I've suffered in my life. And He showed me that it was by those trials in my life that Yahweh caused me to change. All right? Revelation 3. We're going to start reading in verse 19. It's going to be on page 1195 in the old ISR. Revelation 3:19. Is everybody there? All right, here we go. As many as I love, I just walk up and knock the living daylights out of them for no other reason than my own twisted enjoyment. It's a lot of fun. Mine doesn't say that either. As many as I love, I reprove and discipline. So be ardent and repent. See, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I shall come into him and dine with him, and he with me. To him who overcomes, see that word? To him who overcomes, I shall give to sit with me on my throne, as I also overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. See, Yahweh allowed trials to come my way because you know what? He loved me. You too. All right? But see, he needed to get my attention. I can't speak for you, but he needed to get my attention. But the reason that he wanted my attention was because he loves me. Now, the following verses in the passage that we just read from 1 Peter 5, 8, and 9, where it says, resist the devil. Let's look back there right quick. I should have told you to keep your finger there, but 1 Peter 5, verse 10. And the Elohim of all favor, who called you to his everlasting esteem by Messiah Yeshua, after you have suffered a while, himself perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. To him be the esteem and the might forever and ever. Amen. All right? See, because of this right here, sometimes I can start feeling a little sorry for wicked people. You know? Who I've either known. You ever known any wicked people? Who I've ever known or I've known of in my life that seem to be doing quite well. And you know those people too. They're the ones who really mistreat other people, who have no regard for Elohim, or only they regard him to be seen by men. You've seen those folks, all right? And yet they have the cars and the jewels and the houses and the pools. That was pretty good, wasn't it? Et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes I feel sorry for them, and you know why? Yahweh allowed me to go through trials for reproof and discipline because he loved me, and he knew that left me to my left to my own devices, I would likely have not turned to him also. All right? And that makes it a lot easier on the devil. He does not want me to be like the wicked people. And if you're not a wicked person, he doesn't want you to be like a wicked person either. And that's a blessing. That's praise. Hallelujah. Psalm 11. By the way, the world's supposed to end tomorrow. While you're turning there, you folks at home will probably be getting this after the world ends. On September 27th, 2015, the world's supposed to end. But we're going to ask Robert Bob to give the message tomorrow anyway, just in case. Psalm 11, verse 1. In Yahweh I have taken refuge. Why do you say to me, flee to your mountain like a bird? For look, the wrong bend a bow, they set their arrow on the string and shoot in darkness at the upright in heart. When the foundations are destroyed, what shall the righteous do? Yahweh and His set-apart Hekal, the throne of Yahweh is in the heavens. His eyes see, His eyelids examine the sons of men. Yahweh tries who? The righteous, but His being shall what? Hate the wrong and the one who loves violence. Upon the wrong He rains snares, fire and sulfur, and a scorching wind are the portion of their cup. For Yahweh is righteous, He has loved righteousness, the upright shall see His face. Did you get that? All right? He tries the righteous, but His being shall hate the wrong and the one who loves wickedness. So we talked about this, I think, last week. There's some people Yahweh hates. I don't want to be one of them. Amen. All right? All right. And do you know why? Because what it says in verse 6. Upon the wrong He rains snares, fire and sulfur, and a scorching wind are the portion of their cup. Right? You know, that lake of fire has purpose. Right? Reproof and discipline is not anger and abuse. It is not. It is correction and training from Yahweh. A loving father does not train a hated child. If Yahweh is allowing trials in your life, then there is a likely something that He's trying to change in you or for your good. Hard as that may be to swallow sometimes, it is. All right? He's not doing it because He hates you and because He gets some kind of morbid enjoyment out of it. If that's what you think, then you have got Him confused with Hasatan. It is because Yahweh loves you and cares about you, and He wants you to be with Him. And you know what? He knows that you need to change your past too. How many people here want to change their past? He also knows that it's going to what it's going to take to turn our stiff necks. He knows that because He knows all about us. Jeremiah 1. Jeremiah. I think these next two passages that we need going to read are just kind of cool. Jeremiah chapter 1. Starting in verse 4. Now the word of Yahweh came to me saying, before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. Now that's something when you think about that. We weren't an accident. Yahweh knew us before we were born. And before you came out of the womb, I did set you apart. I appointed you a prophet to nations. All right? Psalm 139. Page 722. I'm going to start reading in verse 1. Everybody there? Psalm 139. Uh-huh. Oh, you turned to 39, didn't you? Yeah, sure did. Okay. Psalm 139, verse 1. O Yahweh, you have searched me. You know me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought from afar. You sift my path and my lying down, and you know well all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue. But see, O Yahweh, you know it all. You have closed me in behind and before, and laid your hand upon me. Knowledge, too, wondrous for me. It is high. I am unable to reach it. Where would I go from your spirit? Or where would I flee from your face? I go up into the heavens. If I go up into the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the grave, so you are there. I take the wings of the morning. I dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea. There too your hand would lead me, and your right hand hold me. If I say, darkness shall cover me, then night would be light to me. Even darkness is not dark to you, but Night shines as the day. As is darkness, so is light. For you possessed my kidneys. You have covered me in my mother's womb. I gave thanks to you, for I am awesomely and wondrously made. Wondrous are your works, and my being knows it well. My bones was not concealed from you when I was shaped in a hidden place. You see that? Knit together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body, and in your book all of them were written. The days they were formed, while none was among them. And how precious are your thoughts to me, O El. How great has been the sum of them. If I should count them, they would be more than sand. When I wake up, I am still with you. Oh, that you would slay the wrong. O Eloah, depart from me, therefore, men of bloodshed. They speak against you wickedly. Bring your enemies to naught. O Yahweh, do I hate them who hate you? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? With a complete hatred I hate them. They have become my enemies. Search me, O El, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if an idolatrous way is in me, and lead me in a way everlasting. All right? See, so Yahweh knows you and me completely. All right? And if He loves us, He knows what it will take to get us to turn to Him so that we can be with Him forever. And that's a nice thing. All right? That's a loving Father. And the sooner we learn and turn, the sooner the trial stops. Yahweh wants to bless those that He loves, but remember, He loves the righteous but hates the wicked. All right? Isaiah 48. Isaiah 48, Yeshayahu. Page 451. We're going to start reading verse 17. Isaiah 48:17. Thus said Yahweh, your Redeemer, the set apart one of Yisrael. I am Yahweh, your Elohim, teaching you what is best. That's pretty cool. Teaching you what is best, leading you by the way you should go. If only you had listened to my commands, then your peace would have been like a river, and your righteousness like the waves of the sea. So let me ask you this question. Do you accept the premise that Yahweh reproves and disciplines those that He loves? Okay. Let's look at one more. Proverbs 3. We're going to start reading verse 11, page 730. Proverbs 3, verse 11. My son, do not despise the discipline of Yahweh, and do not loathe His reproof. For whom He loves, He reproves as a father to son whom He delights in. So, we should appreciate the fact that Yahweh helps to correct our ways. Amen? All right? Do you ever think that things would be better if you weren't such a slow learner? Boy, I do. How many of you recognize that you have shortcomings in your personalities? Really? Okay, I'm taking note of who doesn't. These are the really slow learners. How many of you can recognize that your shortcomings cause you to practice the same kind of behavior again and again, usually with the same kind of failed results? All right. Now, I'm not going down the insane path. Well, I may, but that's for other people to decide. But you can relate to that, right? You can relate to that. All right. And yet, we find ourselves either unable or unwilling to change. Right? And frequently, we feel like miserable failures or helpless victims or a combination of both. You ever been there? I have. For instance, we might uninvited stick our nose into somebody else's business and then feel hurt or insulted when they tell us to butt out. All right? We might gossip again and again, reaping the same rewards of resentment. All right? Next, we make a vow with ourselves to mind our own business. Never going to do it again until we have another burning coal on our tongue, and we gossip again, and we reap the same rewards. All right? And those are just a couple of examples. Can you relate to that? All right. I hope you can. Otherwise, Yahweh may not be working on you, or you may not be resisting the devil. If Yahweh's not working on you, if Yahweh's not working on you, do you know what that means? That means He knows that you're not going to learn in turn. And the Word talks about that as well. So He has prepared another end for you. But if you'll remember what we read in Psalm 11:5, you don't need to turn there. Yahweh tries the righteous, but His being shall hate the wrong, and the one who loves violence. Upon the wrong He rains snares, fire, sulfur, and scorching wind are the portion of their cup. For Yahweh is righteous, He has loved righteousness, the upright shall see His face. But why do we have such a hard time learning? One reason is that very word discipline, that it says that He disciplines those He loves. The very word discipline means training, okay? And training means to develop or form the habits, thoughts, or behaviors of a child or other person by discipline and instruction. All right, and that takes time and effort to train. All right. Yahweh's also been showing me that for far too long, most of us have been blaming things on our shortcomings. Sometimes we don't really try at all. All right? Instead of trying it all, we'll say things like, "Oh, I can't help it," or "That's just the way I am." They got a place reserved for just the way I am. All right. Guess what? The devil's just the way he is too. Oh no, I know he didn't say that. He did. The devil's just the way he is too. Then there are those of us who are trying to work on our shortcomings. Right, anybody here trying to work on your shortcomings? Wait till you hear what I got to say next. You see, the reason is because we've been focusing on the wrong thing. The real problem is not your shortcomings. The real problem is, got your ear? Your real problem is your strongholds. Okay, that's what your problem is. My problems, our problems. See, strongholds are the disease, and shortcomings are the symptoms of the stronghold disease. And until we are able to overcome the stronghold, which stands in the way of righteousness in our lives, we will continue to have the symptoms of the disease. All right? The shortcoming that seems to make us so uncomfortable, we're going to continue to have that. See, we have a tendency to treat what? Symptoms. We have a tendency to treat symptoms. The problem with that is that there can be very different causes. All right. I'm sorry. There can be very different diseases with the same type of symptoms. For example, Jim and Rick are both sick. I didn't mean for that to rhyme. It just came out that way. All right. Jim and Rick are both sick. All right. Both fellas have the exact same symptoms. They both have fever, body aches, runny nose, congestion, vomiting, and the other bad stuff. Okay? Both got the same things. All right? Both fellas can take aspirin, help reduce the fever and the body aches, a decongestant for the runny nose and the congestion, Phenergan for the nausea, and something like kaopectate for the other stuff. All right? Both Jim and Rick get the same relief from their discomfort by treating the symptoms, but guess what? When the medications wear off, the symptoms come back. Right? The problem is that Jim's physical stronghold is a bacterial infection, and Rick's is a viral infection. All right? Jim could be put on around antibiotics, and after a while, the symptoms that I know there's other problems antibiotics cause. Don't write me and call me and tell me boo on medicine and all that. This is just for, okay, get the point. Part to get the point. All right. Jim could be put on around antibiotics, and the symptoms that cause all those discomforts would go away. Antibiotics, on the other hand, wouldn't help Rick at all. All right? You got the same. Both men have the exact same symptoms. All right? Treating the symptom will not cure the ill. Yahweh wants for us to overcome the strongholds in our lives that keep us from righteousness. All right? One verse in Revelation 3. Revelation 3. We're going to read verse 21, page 1196. Revelation 3, verse 21. To him who overcomes, I shall give to sit with me on my throne, as I also overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. All right? The sooner that we turn to him for the help in those areas, the sooner he will help us. All right? That's one of the reasons why we have trials. I want you to turn with me and look at the type of overcomer that Yahweh is looking for. Turn with me to Numbers chapter 13. Now this is going to be before Yisrael went into the land, of course. Now we're going to start reading in verse 17. Numbers 13, verse 17. And Moshe sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, Go up here into the south and go up into the mountains and see what the land is like and the people who dwell in it, whether strong or weak, whether few or many, whether the cities they inhabit are in camps or, what's that next word? Strongholds. And whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are forests there or not. And you shall be strong and bring some of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the season of the first fruit of grapes. All right? Now why would Moshe want to know about strongholds? Strongholds are fortifications of the enemy that are hard to get past. All right? When the 12 spies returned to give an account of what they saw, we get two different accounts. All right? Verse 27. 10 of the spies said the following. And they reported him and said, We went to the land where you sent us, and truly it flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. But the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are walled very great. And we saw the descendants of Anak there too. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, while the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea along the banks of the Jordan. But you see, Caleb, and Yehoshua have a very different attitude. Verse 30. And Caleb silenced the people before Moshe and said, Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are certainly able to, what's that next word? Overcome it. But the men who had gone up with him said, We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they gave the children of Israel an evil report of the land which they spied out, saying, The land through which we have gone as spies is a land eating up its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. And we saw there the Nephilim, sons of Anak, of the Nephilim. And we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we were in their eyes. Right, 14 verse 1. Then all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And the children of Israel grumbled against Moshe and against Aharon, and all the congregation said to them, If only we had died in the land of Mitzrayim. Or if only we had died in the wilderness. And why is Yahweh bringing us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should become a prey? Would it not be better for us to turn back to Mitzrayim? And they said to each other, let us appoint a leader, and let us turn back to Mitzrayim. Then Moshe and Aharon fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. And Yehoshua son of Nun, and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who spied out the land, tore their garments, and they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If Yahweh has delighted in us, then He shall bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which is flowing with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against Yahweh, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their defense has turned away from them, and Yahweh is with us. Do not fear them. But all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Then the esteem of Yahweh appeared in the tent of the meeting before all the children of Israel. And Yahweh said to Moshe, how long shall I be scorned by these people? And how long shall I not be trusted by them with all the signs which I have done in their midst? All right, do you see the struggle there? Yahweh wants to give great things to His people. So that He's esteemed in the eyes of the nations. All right? You have the weak and unrighteous majority, that's what it is, making it easy for who? And a faithful and willing minority. All right? If Israel had trusted Yahweh and gone up against the inhabitants of the land, they would not have wandered with their children for 40 years. How much sooner could we get to the reward if we would trust Yahweh? Something to think about. All right? Think about it. Yahweh gave David the victory over Goliath. Amen. But David had to go do battle with Goliath to get that victory. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. Page 1123. Chapter 10, verse 3. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not fight according to the flesh. For the weapons we fight with are not fleshly, but mighty in Elohim for, what are those next two words? Overthrowing strongholds. Overthrowing reasonings. Now, would that be just any kind of reasonings? I think it'd be those wicked reasonings that Yahshua was talking about that come out of the heart. And every high matter that exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim, taking captive every thought to make it obedient to Messiah, and being ready to punish all disobedience when our obedience is complete. So, Yahweh's been talking to me about fixing my problems because He loves me. All right? If there are trials in your life, He's most likely trying to get you to fix your problems because He loves you too. I'm going to go out on a limb here just a little bit. Yahweh has shared some things with me about strongholds. And when coming up against a stronghold, what usually comes from the enemy when you're trying to overcome a stronghold? I'm talking about like a fortified structure. Well, stones be hurled at you. Arrows, that's one. Even fiery arrows, boiling oil, they dump that over the top to try to get you. All kinds of things. These are problems, but you know what? They're not the main problem. Just with Jim and Rick's disease that they had, when the real problem was overcome, the symptoms went away. All right? The stones and the arrows and the boiling oil are only painful deterrents to keep you from tearing down what? The stronghold. That's what all that stuff is. But once the stronghold comes down, guess what stops? The stones and the boiling oil and the fiery arrows and all that stuff. And that's an encouraging revelation to me. All right? All right? Once while I was asking Yahweh to show me the strongholds that were sending the fiery arrows my way, I felt compelled to get the big book and read from Sinners Anonymous. Anybody ever read Sinners Anonymous? Huh. I'm going to read you a little bit today. I started reading how it works in Sinners Anonymous. All right? Sinners Anonymous is a book that helps people to deal with addictions which they suffer with. Okay? Now, once again, I find myself in a room full of addicts. Well, I do. So I figure that we can all benefit from this. There's a lot of people that become offended when you say that you know, even make the suggestion that they're an addict. You know. Well, let me ask you this: are you a sinner? Let me see the hands of all the sinners in here. Okay. It's not looking good for y'all. Do you continue to sin? Do you continue to sin from time to time, seemingly unable to control yourself? And you continue to reap the same trouble and hardship that your sin causes you every time, right? But you keep on doing it even though you know that it's destructive to you and your relationships both with others and with Elohim. All right? Well, brothers and sisters, if that's the case, then you're addicted to sin. Otherwise, you'd be able to stop yourself, and you wouldn't be so compulsive in your giving in to the temptations that you do. All right. So let me share something with you from Sinners Anonymous, and please pay very close attention. I think it's something that you'll be able to benefit from. Some of you may be familiar with this. If you're not, let me know. I'll get you a copy. All right. Being convinced, we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to Elohim as we understood Him. Just what do you mean by that, and just what do we do? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we're almost always in a collision course with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like the actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If the rest of the world would only behave, the outlaw safecracker, who thinks society has wronged him, the alcoholic who's lost all and is locked up, whatever our protestations, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, our self-pity? Here we go. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Oh golly, I hated to bring that up today, but I'm going to read it again though. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. That sounds like sticking our nose in other people's business earlier, doesn't it? Yeah. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation, but invariably find that at some time in the past we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the sinner is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we sinners must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. Elohim makes that possible. Pretty good book, isn't it? And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without His aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have Elohim's help. This is how, and this is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing Elohim. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, Elohim is going to be our director. He is the principal. We are His agents. He is the Father, and we are His children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we passed to freedom. When we sincerely took a position, when we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all-powerful, He provided what we needed if we kept close to Him and performed His work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of His presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn, as they say. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood Him, Elohim, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power. Thy love and Thy way of life, may I do Thy will always. We thought well before taking this step, making sure that we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to Him. We found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor, but it is better to meet Elohim alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we expressed the idea of voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a very great one, was felt at once. Next, we launched on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which was personal house cleaning. Does that sound like something that a person, that a sin addict could benefit from? Yeah, I think so. I started looking at those places where I am having selfishness issues. Y'all have probably been looking at that too. You might be surprised as to how many of your symptoms will start to clear up nicely. All right? Now, though I have a long way to go, many of my resentments disappear by simply asking myself, are you upset because of selfishness? Because of self-centeredness? Because of focus on self? See, I was fearful about sharing this because, see, it would make me vulnerable. I have plenty of shortcomings, which are a result of the stronghold of, guess what? Self. But I know that I should have shared it. You know why? Because if I hadn't, it would have been selfish. Perhaps it'll help you in searching out the strongholds of your own. All right. It's all right to get together with Yahweh to ask for help. See, we're not without flaw. We seem to have been born that way. Did you know Yahweh uses imperfect people? You know He uses imperfect people a lot. And do you know why that is? Because the perfect people are so hard to come by. All right? Psalm 51. We'll start reading verse 1, page 673. Psalm 51, verse 1. Show me favor, O Elohim, according to your kindness, according to the greatness of your compassion. Blot out my transgressions. Wash me completely from my guilt and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you, you alone have I sinned and done evil in your eyes, that you might be proven right in your words. Be clear when you judge. See, I was brought forth in crookedness, and in sin my mother conceived me. See, you have desired truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part you make me know wisdom. Cleanse me with hyssop, and I am clean. Wash me, and I am whiter than snow. Let me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones you have crushed rejoice. Hide your face from my sins, and blot out all my crookedness. Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me away from your presence, and do not take your set-apart spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your deliverance, and uphold me, noble spirit. Let me teach transgressors your ways, so that sinners turn back to you. Deliver me from blood guilt, O Elohim. Elohim of my deliverance, let my tongue sing aloud of your righteousness. O Yahweh, open my lips, and let my mouth declare your praise. For you do not desire slaughtering, or I would give it. You do not delight in burnt offering. The slaughterings of Elohim are a broken spirit, a heart broken and crushed. O Elohim, these you do not despise. Do good in your good pleasure to Zion. Build the walls of Jerusalem. Then you would delight in the slaughterings of righteousness, in burnt offering and complete burnt offering. Then young bulls would be offered on your altar. It is not a sign of weakness to admit that you need Yahweh. Amen? All right? And Yahweh knows that we all have things to overcome. Spend time with Yahweh and ask Him to help you with your strongholds rather than your shortcomings. They got lots more fiery darts to throw at you. Tear down the strongholds. He's trying you because He loves you. Makes you better able to resist the devil. What good would it do to try you for no reason? Amen? Our last two passages today, Matthew 7. Matthew 7, verse 7. Ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds. And to him who knocks it shall be opened. And our last passage is Proverbs 3. And we like this one. Proverbs 3, verse 5. Trust in Yahweh with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Know Him in all your ways, and He makes your path straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear Yahweh and turn away. It is healing to your navel and moistening to your bones. So seek Him and know Yahweh and make it hard for the devil. Yevrokeka Yahweh Baishmareka Ya Er Yahweh Panavaleka Bikaneka Yasa Yahweh Panavaleka Biasem Lakash Shalom. Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make His face to shine upon you and show favor you. Yahweh lift up His face upon you and give you His complete contentment.